Hello everyone, welcome to our class on phonology and morphology. It's actually a class on the pronunciation of two English morphemes, okay? The first morpheme we're going to see is the final ed for the simple past of regular verbs, okay? So there are three possible pronunciations for the final ed marking the simple past of regular verbs. One possible pronunciation is okay, so voiceless alveolar plosive t. Another possible pronunciation is the voiced alveolar plosive, so d. So the ed may sound as d. And a third option is id or id. Okay? So take a few seconds to look at these 9 verbs in the past that you can see and think about how you pronounce the final ed in each one of them. So do you pronounce t, d, or id? I'll give you a few seconds before I give you the answer, okay? Alright, so here you are. So we should pronounce the first one as wanted, stopped, moved, added, played, and talked. Alright? Now, let's see the rules. Do you know the rules? Can you think of them? Here they are. So this is how we know which sound should be pronounced for the final ed. We should look at the verb without the final ed first. So we look at the base form of the verb, all right? If the base form of the verb ends in a voiceless sound, and remember, sound, okay? Try to think of the final sound, not the final letter or grapheme, but the final sound. If the final sound is voiceless, then the final ed will be voiceless as well and will be pronounced t. All right, so we have wipe, final sound of wipe, voiceless. In the past, wiped. Like, final sound, k, k, k. You see that we write like, L-I-K-E. But we're not considering the letter, but the sound, okay? Final sound is k. It's voiceless. So in the past, liked. Laugh is misspelled. Sorry about that. It should be L-A-U-G-H-E-D, all right? So but the base form is laugh, voiceless. So in the past, laughed. Mess, messed, crash, crashed, and match, matched. What is important to notice here? When we add the final ed, we're writing ed. Unless the verb already ends with e, then we just write d. But we can see letter e and letter d written. But we're not going to pronounce an extra vowel, okay? We're just adding a consonant sound. This means if we're not adding a vowel, we're not adding a syllable. So the verb should still have the same number of syllables it has in the base form. So wipe has 1 syllable. In the past, wiped, still 1 syllable. 1 vowel, 1 syllable. Like, it has 1 vowel sound, 1 diphthong, right? It's 1 syllable. In the past, still 1 syllable, liked. Laugh, 1 syllable, laughed, and so on. A typical mispronunciation by Brazilian learners is to add an extra syllable and say things like wipeage, likeage, laughage, and so on. No extra vowel, no extra syllable for the verbs in the first column, okay? Just a t at the end. Wiped, liked, laughed, messed, crashed, matched. For the verbs in the second column, still we don't add an extra syllable. We just add d. The difference is that now it's voiced. So again, we look at the verb in its base form, and if the last sound of the verb is voiced, then the final ed will be voiced as well and will sound d. So bribe, final sound b, b, b. It's voiced. In the past, bribed. We had 1 syllable, bribe. In the past, still 1 syllable, bribed. No extra vowel, no extra syllable, not bribed, but bribed. Jog, final sound g, g, g. It's voiced. In the past, jogged. We don't add an extra vowel and therefore no extra syllable. Live, lived. Name, named. Open, opened. Roll, rolled. Appear, appeared. Raise, raised. Breathe, breathed. Long, loaned. Merge, merged. And if the verb in the base form ends in a vowel, every vowel is voiced. So the final ed will be d. So cry ends in a vowel, right? In the diphthong, cry. So we just add d, cried. No extra vowel. We don't do cried, just cried. Okay. So another example would be the verb to study. Study. It ends in a vowel. So in the past, you just add d, studied, without an extra vowel. So not studied or cried, but cried and studied. Okay. Now in the third column, we have the last rule. And the rule is, if the verb in the base form ends in t or d, the two sounds we used so far, then we do add an extra syllable, and we're going to pronounce it id or id. Okay? So last, it ends in t. So the final ed will sound id or id with an extra syllable. Last has one syllable, lasted, two. Accept, two syllables. Accepted, three. Add, one syllable. Added, two. Found, one syllable. Founded, two. Okay? So if the verb in the base form ends in a voiceless sound, the final ed will sound t. If the verb in the base form ends in a voiced sound, then the final ed will sound d. And if the verb in the base form has t or d as the final sound, the ed will sound id. Okay, the only case where we add an extra syllable. Now the rule, okay, I have this video here to illustrate this. Okay, let me try to play it.
Yeah, I don't know, I don't remember. I haven't been here in years.
This is it right here.
This is it?
Yeah. Here.
This is Mom's grave? Passed away? P-A-S-T? Dad, you spelled past wrong. It's not spelled P-A-S-T. Passed away. P-A-S-S-E-D.
I know how to spell it. That's $50 a letter.
You spelled it wrong on purpose to save $100?
Yes, why not? It has the same meaning. Everybody knows what it means.
It's not the same meaning.
You saved $100? Why, I would have paid for it. Are you kidding?
Well, I didn't ask you because...
So I really like this video for the part that the older man says it's the same meaning. Everybody knows what it means, and it's interesting, this sentence, because if you're saying P-A-S-T and the past of pass, P-A-S-S-E-D, if you're saying it, it's true, it's the same. P-A-S-T, you say past. P-A-S-S-E-D, you say past. You say the same because pass ends in a voiceless sound, so the ed will sound t, past. It's gonna sound the same. Of course, written, it's two different words, two different meanings, right? But the same pronunciation. So they are homophones, same pronunciation, okay? Now, there is one exception to the rule, and the exception is this. Every time I was talking about the final ed, I said the final ed for the simple past of regular verbs, okay? If you look at an adjective with a final ed that does not come from a verb, then the rule doesn't apply. The ed will sound id, okay? So the best example, I think, is the word naked, because there is no verb nake. There is no verb to nake. There is only the adjective. It doesn't come from a verb. Because it's an adjective with a final ed, but that doesn't come from a verb, it will sound id, okay? So naked. Then wretched. There is no verb to wretch, so the adjective is wretched. There is no verb to weak, so the adjective is wicked. Beloved is a good one because there is the verb love, and the past of love is loved. Okay, love ends in a voice sound, so the final ed is d, loved. But there is no verb to beloved, so the adjective that you're looking here is beloved, my beloved ones, okay? The same with four-legged and crooked, all right? So it's an exception, all right? Now, final S. For final S, and this final S could be the morpheme to mark the third person singular in the simple present, to mark plural, or for a contraction, apostrophe S, okay? For the possessive, for instance. It doesn't matter which final S it is, the rule applies, okay? And it's a rule that is analogous to the one for the final ED. There is a slight difference, but it's analogous, okay? So again, I'll give you a few seconds to look at these 6 words here. Pronounce them to yourselves, maybe think of the rule for the final ED, and decide how you would pronounce the final S in each of these words. Would you pronounce it S, Z, or is? I'll give you a few seconds. Okay, and here we go. Here are the answers. So we pronounce it classes, plays, tables, jacks, cats, and watches. Now let's see the rules, okay? The beginning of the rule is the same. So you look at the word without the final S. If the word without the final S ends in a voiceless sound, then the final S will sound voiceless. S. So cup ends in a voiceless sound. The final S will be cups. Take ends in a final S. Ends in a voiceless sound. So the final S will be takes. Student, last sound, voiceless. So the final S, students. And I gave you one example of each function. Cups, the S is marking the plural. Takes, it's marking the third person singular in the simple present. And students, you have an apostrophe S, okay? Then the second rule is still similar to the rule for the final ED. You look at the word without the final S. If it ends in a voiced sound, then the final S will sound voiced. Z, okay? So boy ends in a voiced sound, right? The diphthong is voiced. So the final S in boys will sound voiced. Boys, okay? Lives, live without the final S ends in a voiced sound. Live. So the final S, lives, also voiced. She ends in a vowel. All vowels are voiced. So with the final S, she's, also voiced. Again, one example of each. Boys is marking a plural, lives third person singular in the simple present, and she's, it's an apostrophe S, okay? Now, the rule has a slight difference for the last part. If the word without the final S ends in a sibilant, okay? It's a category of consonants, in a sibilant. Sibilants are those consonants that have this turbulence of air when you pronounce them. So, s, sh, ch, j. You can notice how there's turbulence of air when pronouncing these 6 sounds. S, sh, j, ch, j. These are called sibilants, okay? So if the word without the final S ends in a sibilant, then the final S will sound is or is. So with an extra syllable, okay? So you have glass. Final sound, it's a sibilant. It's a sibilant. It has one syllable only, glass. So when you add this final S for the plural, you end up having 2 syllables, glasses. Wash, one syllable, ends in a sibilant. When you add this final S for the third person singular, you get 2 syllables, washes. And judge, one syllable only, ends in a sibilant, judge. When you add this final S with the apostrophe S, you get an extra syllable, and you end up having judges. Okay? And that's it.